Well, then I would ask you as a first question, who are you and how would you describe the work and the activism that brought you here today?
My name is Betty Radule. I am a daughter of Oceania from the Marshall Islands and Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia. Right now, I am the ecumenical enabler for climate justice at the Pacific Conference of Churches based in Fiji, and we support churches in their ecumenical work for the region to address social issues, including nuclear justice. But I sort of got started in this work as a student at the University of the South Pacific, watching my peers perform activism on Nuclear Victims Remembrance Day. So I really enjoyed getting involved, and from there just kind of began delving more into the work, and being able to come to the MSP last year was one of, the pivotal moments for me to understand the importance of nuclear abolition.
You do a lot of climate justice, you just wrote it down as well, and on nuclear justice. So how would you say that these two threads kind of interact with each other? And how are you or how is your community affected by both of them in the end?
There's so many ways that they're linked together. I think firstly, they are part of a world order that prioritizes the now and what people can benefit from now, rather at the cost of future generations. Climate justice, climate change, and nuclear power both do that, I believe. But in the Pacific, especially in Marshall Islands, where I'm from, we consider it two sides of the same coin. They are both huge threats that we are facing, not just because of the nuclear testing and what happened, but ongoing nuclear colonialism and geopolitical issues. And then, of course, climate change. For example, some of the nuclear survivors that were displaced from Bikini Atoll now live on an island that is extremely prone to floods. And so one of my friends, who's a third-generation Bikini Islander, Rosenet Timius, said, "My people were relocated for the good of mankind, and now we have to relocate because of mankind." So I think that just illustrates how both of these issues compound each other. And another really interesting thing I learned was that the studies show, we heard in the MSP, that nuclear weapons will exacerbate climate change and cause a global famine. And this will cause people in the globe to turn to the ocean for food supply. And for the Pacific region, that is our main food supply, source of livelihood and income. And so this will definitely exacerbate what is happening even more. And I see a lot of links there as well.
How would you say were the main impacts on the communities on Marshall Islands due to nuclear testing?
I've heard so many stories about the past testing in the past where our people were told not to fish in their own waters, which is impossible because that's how we get our food, or eat the coconuts on the island. This makes our people dependent on imported foods and processed foods that are not the same healthy diets that they are used to. And in the Marshall Islands, there is a radioactive dome that was supposed to be temporarily storing nuclear waste, but it's still there. And studies show that it is leaking a lot of plutonium into the ocean. And as student at USP, the campaign that we had was "My Fish is Your Fish." And this campaign began as a way for us in our small island to raise awareness to the outer islands. But then it suddenly became more about the Pacific region as well, because it applies to other countries. And now I believe it applies to the world, because we all share the ocean. We all are impacted by nuclear testing and the effects of nuclear testing, no matter where you're from.
I think this week we see a lot how the treaty is evolving and that there's a lot of work to do. What would you say should be the role of affected communities in this process?
I think affected communities should always have a seat at this table. They are the ones who really understand the true horrors of nuclear weapons. And it is through that humanitarian action that reaches out to people, that touches people, even states that are non-member states can assist, provide victims assistance and environmental remediation, working together. And that can be a pathway to understanding why abolishing nuclear weapons is so important. So countries who are not signatories, they can still engage with the TPNW through this way. And I know that the end goal is to abolish nuclear weapons. On the way there, we should never forget those people that are suffering. It's really important for them to be acknowledged, and for reparations and justice that they have been waiting for a long time to be realized.
Just a few hours ago, Germany said that they want to do this victim assistance. And what would you say, like especially regarding research, for example, or regarding needs, what is needed then?
Yes, the Marshall Islands National Nuclear Strategy outlines 5 pillars for nuclear justice, which I think would be very helpful for states that want to assist. There is, sorry, forgive me if I can't remember them off the top of my head, but compensation for all past and present claims under the Nuclear Tribunal, assistance with cleaning up the environment, national capacity to assess risk and respond to risks, education for the future generations to be able to continue to address our nuclear legacy. There are really great strategies outlined, and I think this is a great model for other countries too. We also need self-determination, assistance to achieve self-determination, and declassifying our records, information, and archives. I believe a great start would be to, provide assistance for that. And even just the acknowledgement is very important. I'm so grateful to have the acknowledgement from the international community. It means a lot to have solidarity, and I think that will make great strides towards nuclear justice.
What would you say, what should be the role of young people, and what were barriers for you, for example, also, or problems to get into the whole topic, into these forums, and what is needed for young people to participate?
Thank you. I think it is so important for young people to be involved. They have fresh minds and ideas and a sense of hope, a sense of belonging to a global village and wanting to create a better world and a better future. On that note, I also believe that we need space for more youth from affected communities, from developing countries, so that we can have opportunities to learn about policy, development, science, nuclear physics, so that we can go home and address our own issues with our own priorities in mind. Because there are many times when researchers come in and they have their own ulterior motives and priorities. So I'm grateful for anyone that makes, room for youth voices and for Indigenous voices at the table.
Thank you. You also, I saw your poem, See You Soon Lagoon, and the movie you made, and it's just great. Congratulations on that movie. What role should arts play?
When words are not enough, music, art, and poetry can convey more. They hold more emotion that sometimes is difficult for us to process. So we use art to do that, but also to convey our message and to connect with people. And I think that's what's so great about having the TPNW based on a humanitarian perspective, is that it's about people, it's about healing the injustices. And yeah, I really think art has a significant role to play in this process.
Regarding the problems that you are facing, we are facing, what gives you personally the hope to carry on your work and to not give up?
I feel inspired by the giants on whose shoulders we stand. I think someone that really inspired me is Darlene Keju Johnson. She's a Marshallese activist who, as a young woman, traveled to, I believe it was Canada, at the World Council of Churches Assembly, and told everyone about what was happening in the Marshall Islands. And, you know, I thought, if she can do it, then why can't I do it? Given all the tools that I have, and seeing what has resulted from not only her work, but the many resilient champions from the Pacific and those that started ICANN. Many of them are young people, which is so amazing. I feel inspired when I see them do it. Then I know it's possible that we can make a difference. So it's really important for us to see ourselves in these champions, for young girls to see other young women speaking up, for Marshallese, you know, young people to see other Marshallese young people, because it really gives us so much strength to keep on going. And another thing that keeps me going is my family and my children. I have a son and a daughter, Rika and Noah, and I really just want them to have the future that they deserve. I want them to be able to know who they are and enjoy the blessings that they're meant to have.
Oh, sorry there. Thank you so much for sharing this. And if you want to take a moment.
Thank you. I'm okay.
We are from Germany, and Germany is a nuclear sharing state. And I would ask you if you have a message to the German people, to the German public, probably even the German government, something that you want to tell them and to demand, probably, I don't know.
Sure. I know that talking about these things are confrontational. Sometimes they're uncomfortable when we call out nuclear-powered states, when we note the injustices that have been done. For example, we have spent the past few days reminding the United Nations of their complicity in enabling nuclear violence by ignoring the petition of the Marshallese people to halt testing in their islands after it was done. But we have to have these difficult conversations. I remember going to Hiroshima and seeing the horrific pictures. Those are what drive us to action and remind us about our humanity, that although we are not perfect, we have a responsibility to care for one another. Whether you are religious, whatever your moral compass is, it is always the right thing to care for those who are suffering. And I want to also acknowledge the resilience of my people and thank those who are allies with us. I know that together we can truly make change. And I hope that people in Germany or wherever they are watching this interview from will take the time to learn more about the impacts of nuclear weapons. And we'll take the time to learn more about how nuclear weapons actually affect them and their lives, because they will impact every single one of us on this planet. And I hope that more countries will step up to engage with victims' assistance and environmental remediation and international cooperation, and one day be able to become a world where we all agree on the TPNW and we all abolish nuclear weapons for the good of mankind. Thank you.
Thank you so much.